Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, on what I believe is a very momentous occasion and a momentous milestone in a journey. I reflected quite carefully before coming here today on the significance of this, not only in the context of industrial biotechnology, but in the much greater and larger context of manufacturing and the economy. I've spent a lot of time living and working abroad, and in 1999, just over a decade ago, I came back to the UK after 6 years working for a Swiss multinational based in Basel and living with my family in both Switzerland and France and interacting daily in Germany as well. And I was struck and shocked by the British rhetoric on manufacturing that I experienced on a daily basis. Phrases such as sunset industry, unlevel playing field, unfair competition, low-cost labor in the Far East seem to combine to signal the death knell of British industry or British manufacturing industry. At the same time, I was puzzled by the great optimism sounded on post-industrial Britain. Dot-coms, service industry, financial services, the new paradigm, the end to boom and bust, and a tendency to brag about the British economy and how well it was doing against European peers, such as Germany. The media and even the mass entertainment industry seemed to focus on science and maths for nerds, science and manufacturing as the source of all evil, and manufacturing companies contributing to the pollution and environmental destruction threatening civil society. Even the industrialists seem to be a little on the back foot, fearing that sustainability and the consequences was an additional end-of-pipe cost, adding to the burden, making them uncompetitive. Where was the innovative, ingenious, entrepreneurial spirit that drove the Industrial Revolution from Britain 100 years earlier? This contrasted very starkly with my experience living in Switzerland. Switzerland at the beginning of the 20th century was the poorest country in Europe with no discernible resources. But by 1999, it had the highest GDP per capita in the world, with a population smaller than London. And despite globalization and low-cost labor in the Far East, it could boast leadership positions in global industries in chemicals, pharmaceuticals, fast-moving goods, and precision engineering. The kids that were with my kids at school recognized that science and mathematics were crucial to their future, and they aspired to exemplify capabilities in adulthood. Now, I realize that many people in this room have kept faith in science, technology, engineering, maths, and manufacturing, and the last decade has seen a gradual but progressive and now accelerating change. A key catalyst in this region was the RDA, the Regional Development Agency strategy of focusing on technology from a university base and creating the centers of technology such as CPI about a decade ago. If we look back over this decade, though, it's been a decade of constant crisis and shock and issue. It started in 2000, if that was the beginning of the decade, with the dot-com bubble collapse, which was rapidly followed by the Twin Tower terrorist attack. And that has fueled and added to the propensity for geopolitical unrest, which continues on a daily basis for everyone to witness. Climate change, although has been a little bit discredited in places, is a reality. And it's clear to see the instability of climate patterns and the lack of predictability seems to be increasing. When you combine these fundamental drivers, we've seen the impact of volatility in both pricing and availability of key materials, oil, key commodities for manufacturing industry and food, and scarcity of potable water. This combination has really created a focus on a daily basis in the newspapers for sustainable development. And we've yet to fully witness the results of the population explosion, which will have a huge impact on social stability, creating increasing instability around the globe. And there'll be knock-on effects which are rather difficult to predict. These issues are now being recognized by civil society and citizens, individual citizens, who are looking impatiently for solutions. And they're turning to scientists, technologists, engineers for those solutions. And therein lies a bit of an opportunity. I can't complete this review without mentioning the financial crisis, which kicked off in 2007. Which has had a massive impact, and again, there are daily reports. It will take the best part of the next decade to fully unravel, but one should never waste a crisis, and this also produces new opportunity. As the political rhetoric in this country changes, as the political narrative changes to the need for a balanced economy and positive balance of payments, there is now a recognition that the UK is still the 6th largest manufacturing nation in the world, despite the decades of neglect and ridicule. The fact that manufacturing is the major player contributing to a positive balance of payments and is once again accepted. Government reports over the last few years, such as the manufacturing strategy for the UK, new challenges, new opportunities, the insightful vision of Mandelson with his report on new industries, new jobs, the Hauser report on innovation, the Dyson report commissioned by David Cameron on Ingenious Britain, where Dyson looks at how to reawaken the slumbering giant of innovation. All these chime to the new beat as we approach the next budget, where we're told the focus will be on growth through entrepreneurial business and manufacturing. There is a clear recognition that the UK still has great and differentiated competitive strength in specialized innovation and can pragmatically and skillfully manage complex supply chains post-globalization. I hear a new spirit among manufacturers who are now confident and ambitious and can tackle an unlevel playing field and can believe that they can compete globally. But above all, they want stable and benign government policies on business-critical issues, which include and are not limited to taxation, skills, education, research and innovation, IP management and protection, employment law, the green economy, and carbon pricing. And we must eliminate the paralyzing bureaucracy. Another development over the last months has been a recognition of the role of technology innovation centres, which Nigel was talking about. These are now seen as critical in the sustainable development of a strong and innovative manufacturing base. And this government is determined to focus on areas of high-value manufacturing, where the UK has a comparative advantage in the global context. Hopefully, gone are the days of spreading government money far and wide and as thin as possible, and we're now looking at an era of focus and selected critical mass. I felt honoured to be asked to lead the innovation and growth team on industrial biotechnology, a daunting task which kicked off in early 2008. Fortunately, help was at hand, and I was assisted by a plethora of talents who came out of industrial companies, large, small, and startup, the academic community, public sector, and financiers and financers. And we produced a report published in May 2009, which essentially had 5 key recommendations, looking at the key ingredients to liberate the potential of our world-beating science and technology base in industrial biotechnology. We calculated with extensive data we could add £10 billion to the economy by 2025. And central to those five key recommendations was the creation of an industrial open access demonstration facility that would allow technology to progress through the glass ceiling to full commercialization. And this is clearly a momentous day today. In support of this program, the Technology Strategy Board, represented by Will Barton today, has since launched 3 competitive funds for high-value manufacturing using industrial biotechnology. And this is fueling a tide and momentum of innovation, almost revolution, and creating a demand, an increased demand for the facility here. We chose to site the demonstrator facility at CPI to complement the already existing development and smaller scale-up facilities that Nigel showed earlier. And I'm hearing today on an almost daily basis of innovations, investments, mergers, acquisitions, and new startups in the field and area of industrial biotechnology. A technology that can really shed light and improve our ability to deal with rising waste, diminishing resources, and diminishing water and diminishing energy resources. I'm therefore delighted to see this very impressive facility open today after an extremely rapid conception, design, and build. And it is ready, I understand, for business this month after a relatively fast-track project. Many people in this room have contributed to the excellence of this effort and worked extremely hard over a period of time. And I think we should celebrate this milestone today, and we should recognize and congratulate the many people who've worked so hard for the benefit of many more. So I ask you to cheer them in the usual way. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ian. We've got time for a few brief questions. There was a lot in there. Would anybody like to start off? If not, Ian, I will ask, what's your level of optimism about where the UK is going, both in manufacturing and I suppose specifically in industrial biotechnology?
I've actually become increasingly optimistic because I think back over my experiences, my early experiences in industrial biotechnology were in the 80s, and I've seen quite a few false dawns. And I think there are a number of ingredients that are coming together now which can provide much more confidence in the technology. And I think the primary thing I'm seeing is a multidisciplinary focus on using the technology and trying to use the technology where it makes sense. So rather than trying to create an isolated facility where biotechnology does everything, I'm seeing more and more examples where there may be a bit of conventional chemistry in one part, there may be a separation technology and an extraction technology in another part. There may be a very sophisticated synthetic biology component. And the second thing that I'm seeing is things going downstream and going upstream. So there was a time when biotechnology was really seen as expensive, lengthy to develop, and could only be used for relatively small scale, very expensive products. Or at the other extreme, the brewing industry. And now I think we see more and more examples where biotechnology can be used to make chemical building blocks, to make advanced polymers, and almost to make products directly. So all of this has come together. In terms of the UK economy, I think politicians have, for whatever reasons, underplayed manufacturing for the decades since the last war. So I don't think it was a short-term effort. But what I'm particularly encouraged about is, as I tried to indicate in the talk, there have been some profound changes in rhetoric. And those changes have actually survived the change of government. So the last government initially promised £12 million after the financial crisis. The new government, despite its commitment to cost cuts, honoured that commitment and has fully supported the development. And I think focus is really important. I remember working at this public-private interface in 1990, I think it was, when Tarzan was the president of the DTI, Heseltine. And I became shocked when I found that his budget was being spread on 127 key industries. 127 key industries. So this focus on high-value manufacturing, and Will talk a bit more about that, I'm sure, I think is the right way to go. If I look at Switzerland, and if you look at photographs of Switzerland 100 years ago, it was a peasant community, and there was just no industrialization. And they focused on a few key things where they could be world beaters. And I think we need to look at our strengths and do that.
Thanks very much, Ian. Can we thank Ian again? Thank you.